Watch out.
Okay, seize the force and put... Hey, hey, hey, hey!
Arctic sunrise. You stop your vessel or heave to. If you don't do this, I repeat, presently is taking decision on stop your vessel with using weapon. Sir, presently is taking decision on stop your vessel with using weapon.
I understand what you're saying. Please understand what you're threatening to do. We are on a peaceful voyage in order to protest against the threat to the planet. We are here in order to make the world a better place. And in response, you are threatening to open fire on our ship. I urge you to not do this, because this will put in danger the crew of the ship. It's not just a legal matter, sir. I think this is also a matter for your conscience.
the early hours of Wednesday morning, the activists set off in speedboats towards the rig. They filmed the armed Russian Coast Guard in pursuit. Clambering up ropes in the icy Arctic waters, two of the climbers managed to hook themselves on. Clinging to the side of the Russian oil rig through the force of the water cannon trained on them above. They claim their safety boats were rammed repeatedly from below.
Watch out.
The Russian Coast Guard later fired a series of warning shots before boarding and reportedly seizing the Greenpeace ship.
A helicopter hoved into view on the horizon. It came over the heli deck of the Arctic Sunrise and a rope appeared, and then about 15 or 16 commandos have sailed down onto the ship. He said they were armed with handguns, rifles and knives, and that they began rounding up the crew.
There is no footage of what happened next, but from their Twitter feed, the crew of the Arctic Sunrise sent this.
Russian authorities on board with guns. They're breaking into the comms room now. Latest from the deck, crew are sitting on their knees in the helipad with guns pointed at them. This is pretty terrifying. Loud banging, screaming in Russian. They're still trying to kick in the door.
1 hour later came this. No contact to the Arctic Sunrise anymore. Greenpeace will continue to tweet updates here. The last known position of the Arctic Sunrise showed it moving west towards the Russian port of Murmansk. Russia's foreign ministry confirmed the ship had been detained and said the activists' aggressive actions endangered people's lives. Greenpeace insists this was an entirely peaceful protest, that the only danger here is to the Arctic from Russia's plans to drill for its oil. Katie Stallard, Sky News, Moscow.
No, the men came down a rope.
Ага, понял. Так, дальше.
Well, then once they were on the boat, we gave up.
Как только они были на лодке, все сразу сдались.
И что с вами сделали?
And what did they do to you?
They just pushed everybody into the mess. That's the room where we eat.
Они всех затолкали в столовую.
And left me on the bridge.
А Петра оставили на мостике.
And after a while, they let people go to their cabins.
Через какое-то время они позволили людям пройти в свои кабины.
And they kept me in my cabin. I was not allowed to leave my cabin.
И они...
That I'm innocent. I've worked for Greenpeace for over 2 years, and
Я работаю на Greenpeace уже больше 2 лет.
And I'm proud to work for Greenpeace because of their non-violent, peaceful ethics. The only thing that happened was a peaceful protest, and I believe the footage and Greenpeace's long history can demonstrate this. I'd also like to say that the protest was not directed at Russia. It was solely about Arctic oil and the threat it poses to the climate and the Arctic environment.
My name is Kieran Bryan.
Меня зовут Киран Брайан.
Дату месяца и год рождения. Until December last year, I worked for the Times newspaper of London exclusively.
Передать, что она говорит. Она не понимает, почему идет rечь о слове капитана.
Que nada, que pido realmente que consideren y reconsideren, que vuelvan a considerar tomar otras medidas conmigo. A ver, el cónsul está diciendo que la embajada argentina se va a hacer cargo de mí, que me van a dar un lugar para vivir acá. ¿Quieres que lo diga de nuevo?
Sí.
Que reconsideren.
В отношении подозреваемой исписали Камилы.
İznin var mı? Bir söylemem gereken bilmiyorum. Yani her şeyi almadım aslında. En son gönderilenleri almadım. Çünkü yoksa evet bir anlaşmam vardı. Ben stajyer olarak gittim. Bir anlaşmayla gittim. Yani düşük de olsa bir para bekliyorum.
Я говорю это как практикантка.
Chronicle переводить все решения с помощью защитников, в том числе истории.
What's the worst case scenario for you there with the Arctic Sunrise?
Well, you know, the important thing is there's 30 activists on the ship.
30?
30, yeah. And interestingly, the captain of the ship, who's an American citizen, was the captain when the French intelligence service bombed our ship, the Rainbow Warrior, in Auckland more than 25 years ago.
Yeah, 27 years
27
ago.
years ago.
That was your flagship.
Yeah, Rainbow Warrior, and we have the Rainbow Warrior still, the third version of it. So our first and foremost concern are for our volunteers and activists on board. We hope, best case scenario, is that they will simply be released and sent back to their countries, even if they are deported. Worst case scenario, some media reports in Russia have been using the term piracy, terrorism, and so on. If they were to try to evoke any of those laws, then the situation will be significantly more serious. With regard to the ship sails under a Dutch flag. The Dutch government has been very sympathetic and have been in touch with the Russian authorities seeking clarity as to why the ship was boarded. And we expect that the Dutch, again, on the most positive side, the ship will be released and will sail to its next mission. On the most negative side, there will be a protracted struggle to get the ship back.
Is it illegal for your activists to board or try to board that oil rig out
Yes.
there? It is.
It is.
Illegal against international law or Russian law?
I would say it is an act of non-violent, peaceful civil disobedience against international maritime law.
It was in international
It was in
waters.
international waters.
What was it doing there?
Basically, when there's a rig at sea, the government that's responsible for putting that rig there determines a 500-meter exclusion zone around the rig, and you're not allowed to enter. So we keep our ship outside of that zone, and when our activists are going to take action, so like last year when I was involved, we would go in through an inflatable boat. But you see, I'll tell you the way we do it. The moment an inflatable leaves the ship to enter the zone towards the rig, our captain contacts the captain of the rig, because the rig is actually considered to be a ship at sea, right? And says, captain of the platform, this is Greenpeace, we are engaged in a peaceful protest, this is why we are doing it, because the Arctic is the refrigerator and the air conditioner of the planet, and what happens in the Arctic has impact globally, and this is crazy what is happening, and for these reasons we are taking this action. Please be assured that we are peaceful and there's no threat to property or to people. We communicate that very quickly. So it's always very clear, and I myself participated in an action a year ago protesting against that very same rig, We need to understand that drilling in the Arctic has not yet started, and this could be the first place. And therefore, we have done everything to actually try to stop the production there. And I make no apologies, by the way, the fact that we are morally and ethically having to break the law, because history teaches us, whether it was slavery, whether it was civil rights in the United States, a woman's right to choose, apartheid, all of these major challenges and injustice that humanity has faced over history, those struggles only move forward when decent men and women said, enough is enough and no more. We're prepared to put our lives on the line if necessary. We're prepared to go to prison if necessary.
Welcome to the first U.S.-sponsored interparliamentary conference on the global environment. Today, together, this week, we're making history. We begin a task of tremendous importance with implications for this generation and every generation to follow, for our children and our children's children. Our keynote speech tonight comes from an individual who has helped us dream and has helped us see what before we could only imagine. Carl Sagan has inspired not one nation or one people, but many nations and many peoples.
Thank you, Senator Gore. I'm most happy to be here at this gathering of members of the human community from all over the world to recognize that what we have here is precious and needs to be cherished. If you look at a picture of the Earth from space, or if you talk to astronauts and cosmonauts who have been in space, one of the most striking aspects of the view of the Earth from a few hundred kilometers up is how thin the atmosphere is. There's just this faint blue aura that surrounds the Earth. It has a distinct appearance of fragility. And it is fragile. The thickness of the atmosphere compared to the size of the Earth is about the same as the thickness of a coat of shellac on a globe of the Earth, in a schoolroom, say. There's not much air. The atmosphere is not fully transparent. And at some wavelengths, some colors in the infrared, it's opaque. And that means that if we have lots of infrared absorbing gases in the atmosphere, they may not block the sunlight that's coming in to warm the Earth, but they will block the infrared radiation that the Earth radiates back to space, and then the atmosphere acts as a kind of blanket, warming the Earth. Some molecules in the air, like oxygen and nitrogen, the most abundant ones, don't absorb, almost not at all, in the infrared. So they are not greenhouse gases. But other molecules, like water vapor, or carbon dioxide, or those CFCs I talked about a moment ago, do absorb in the infrared and are greenhouse gases. The more of those gases, the more infrared absorption, the more blanket, and everything else being equal, the more the temperature of the Earth should rise. Now, what should be done? What is a reasonable set of responses to this new oracle? The main problem is the burning of fossil fuels. When you take a lump of coal and burn it in the oxygen of the air, the carbon in the coal combines with the oxygen in the air. Carbon, C, oxygen, O2, makes CO2. It is an irreducible consequence of the burning of coal, oil, natural gas, petroleum, wood, and so on. One thing surely that can be done is to have a more efficient burning of those fossil fuels. Second thing we should do is to make large-scale research and development investments on alternatives to fossil fuels. The paradigm of these alternatives is solar power, which converts sunlight into electricity or sunlight into hot water, producing no polluting gases, no greenhouse gases, no radioactive waste. The third thing that we ought to do is massive reforestation on a global scale. Growing trees take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. They are a kind of anti-greenhouse machinery. We plant a forest, CO2 gets taken out of the atmosphere. Instead of planting forests, we humans are destroying forests at an amazing rate of an acre a second. An acre of land every second is denuded of its trees worldwide. This is stupid and should stop. And the final mitigating step that I want to call your attention to has to do with the population of the human family. All of these other issues, no matter how heroic we change our practices in fossil fuel efficiency, in finding alternatives to fossil fuel, in planting forests, they will all come to naught if we don't do something about the rapidly increasing population growth on the planet. Every human has to burn fuel to go about his or her daily lives. The more people, the more greenhouse gases. There is one final aspect of this issue I'd like to mention, and that is molecules don't have passports. Molecules are very stupid. They do not understand the importance of the concept of national sovereignty. They do not recognize national boundaries. And on those pictures of the Earth from space, it's very hard to make out the national boundaries. The national boundaries are man-made. The Earth is really there. So carbon dioxide or CFCs put up by one nation do not stay over that nation. They are carried by the general circulation of the Earth's atmosphere all over the planet. And therefore, we are all in this together. There is a passage in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, which sometimes haunts me. It goes, "They set an ambush for their own lives." If we do nothing on these global environmental issues, that's what we will be doing. But if we use our intelligence, which is the secret of the success of our species, if we use our ability to foresee the future consequences of present actions, if we draw upon our common humanitarian feelings, then I think that we are fully capable of solving these problems and in the process making the world a far better place than it is now. I wish you all success in your work.
Dear James.
Dear supporters, it's been over a month now that the Special Forces dropped by helicopter and took over our ship at gunpoint. What a terrifying moment, I must admit. Surreal, out of an action movie. Since then, life has been quite difficult.
We were towed into port under armed guard, Murmansk being the final destination.
When we were taken off the ship to be arrested, it felt like a scene from the Cold War. It was dark. I was scared.
The hardest moment was the first night in prison. Being shown to my cell and introduced to a couple of strangers was frightening, to say the least. The cell is about 8 meters long, 4 meters wide and 6 meters high. I spend 23 hours a day in here, without nothing but the occasional book and my thoughts.
The weather has turned to winter.
Everyone sleeps with their clothes on.
I heard that from December, Murmansk is dark for 6 weeks. God, I hope I'm out by then.
There isn't a moment I don't think about my family.
I dream of the day I can run into their arms.
Existence here is incredibly bipolar, ranging from the fatalistic to blind panic that I will spend 15 years in a Russian prison cell for a crime I didn't commit.
I told my friend Phil that I was worried I couldn't cope. He told me I'd be fine. Always remember, there are a lot of people working very hard to release you.
Knowing my friends and family are fighting for me is my source of strength.
I spend a lot of time looking out through the window when the sun shines. I think about the Arctic, the sea ice. It makes me happy. It gives me strength.
Yesterday I saw that someone had scratched "Save the Arctic" into the wall. Made me laugh. I am definitely getting stronger.
All of us are asking each other the question whether we would do it again, knowing the consequences. Yes, we would. We cannot get threatened, and sometimes it is necessary to pay a high price for things we deeply believe in.
I hear news of protests all over the world. The world is talking about Arctic oil.
There are 30 people whose lives have been changed irrevocably from 18 nations across the world. 28 of those people were standing up for what they believe, and 2 journalists were there to report that story. Now we have to hope the world will support their rights to do so, and that Russia will listen.
Greenpeace is only but a word. The people behind it is our strength.